Am I sharing already? Am I sharing my screen?
You were, and now you're not.
Okay, let's try it again. Now am I sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the March 25th edition of the Gateway API meeting. As always, this meeting is governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, effectively boiling down to be nice to one another. So please be nice to one another. Please use the raise hand feature in Zoom when you have questions or interjections, as that helps us to prioritize things and keep the conversation flowing and organized. It is an open agenda meeting. We have a few things. We have plenty we can talk about, but if you want to add something, open agenda, please do add something to the bottom of the current meeting notes on the agenda doc. And if we can get to it this time, we will. If not, we can roll it over to the next one. With that, I think we should probably go ahead and just get started. And I'll pass it over to you, Rob, to talk about 130RC1.
Yeah, I guess I've got most of the things on this. So this is just FYI. The RC finally went out. That was a non-trivial amount of work. So thank you everyone for the help to get this one out the door. Candace especially, thank you for writing up this changelog. This is taken verbatim from her changelog, which is great. Yeah, I don't think there's anything, I think people who have been on this call for a while, I don't think there's anything particularly surprising in this release. I would say one decision we made that wasn't completely obvious was to remove backend LB policy entirely in this release in favor of the new backend traffic policy. That effectively means that there is no easy way for a controller to support both at the same time. Our overarching recommendation for experimental channel things is to just support the new things and not provide some kind of, it's experimental channel. But yes, that's all I would say for this one. Yeah, any other comments, questions? We are, like with every RC, we are looking for some implementations to validate what that release and confirm it works for them. And once we get some signal on that, we'll proceed with a final RC, or no, a final release, unless there's meaningful changes. And then, yeah, I guess we'll just keep on running. KubeCon, I don't know how the meeting this week got canceled on people's calendars. Apologies
I
for
think
that.
somebody probably misfired and thought this was KubeCon week. That's what I'm guessing, but I
Yeah,
could not see a log or anything.
yeah, I didn't see it come through my email. I don't know what happened. But anyway, the meeting next week is legitimately canceled because, a chunk of us will be at KubeCon. Sadly, not all of us, but for those that can make it, we'll be there. Next up, this break room sessions thing. Revived it. Shane, if you don't mind clicking through, I added a single time so far, which I think is for the LLM stuff. Whoa, everything looks so trippy on your inverted colors, Shane. You don't feel like you need to. It's all right. It's all right. But anyway, there's a map now of where we will meet for those at KubeCon. And there's also, if anyone feels like filling in times for their session of interest, please do. Otherwise, I'll just pick times at random. But if you want to be more coordinated than that, that would be great. And if there's a session we should have that isn't covered here, it's also, add. This is, I think, hopefully editable by everyone. So feel free to add whatever you want here.
I'll make sure to get a Rickroll link hidden in there somewhere.
Oh man, Shane's gonna add all the sessions. Perfect.
There's still at least 2 Rickroll links somewhere in the Gateway API nodes history.
Oh, that's amazing.
They're in there. But cool.
Nice. I added
Did
a
we
link there
want?
to, or go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, do we want? Well, I don't know. I won't be there. But I wondered about. I don't. I guess maybe right now is not a good time to have a whole session just about policy and stuff like that, because there's kind of some dust settling with a PR. So maybe I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Guy's gonna be there either.
Mm,
So
that'll make a
you know,
difference.
yeah,
Okay, cool. So yeah, doc is linked from the meeting notes. Please feel free to add something if you will be there.
cool.
Something I should quickly mention is I'll be there to represent Quadrant, so I can potentially answer some stuff on Q's behalf, or at least try to. He's trying to keep me up to date with what he's doing on his PR, but
Roger
yeah.
that.
Okay, well, maybe we should do some policy discussion. Yeah,
I think we can combine this discussion a little bit um, with as well, like the personas we're targeting and how much, like how people are actually going to use and whether these personas are actually interact or expected to interact with this policy, although we're thinking, like even though we're thinking they are. Last time I brought it up, I got some comments offline as well from some people in the group that are also believe that a lot of developers are not like the app developers are, even though we targeted them, they're not the ones that actually interact with it, and people are using some kind of abstractions. They might be even useful us to maybe catch a few people from the other conferences from developer independence or anything during KubeCon and kind of get their opinion.
Roger that.
The reason I'm saying it's about policy because we keep saying that policy is extremely complex, which I agree. But this discussion come up for a lot of the gaps we're doing and who are the persona we're targeting, and sometimes I think we put more weight on the personas and get crucial decisions, and at the end of the day the persona is not really interacting with this. Like the cluster operator is also providing all the templates, and the app developer is just providing values, for example.
Roger that. If you want to continue on that subject, we can. Christine made an awesome point in chat that maybe we would want to talk about UX and adoption. That's kind of one of the sleeping giants in our project right now.
yeah,
And is getting some attention from some of my co-leads in SIG Network, like Tim and Antonio have been kind of joining in on that conversation. So that does actually seem like potentially a great time to do a synchronous brainstorming, if nothing else.
yeah. Why don't we? I think I don't. Feedback from Nick last time was that we had a few too many sessions and it was overwhelming. So what I will volunteer is maybe we repurpose the thing I currently have labeled as Ingress Nginx migration as just overall UX and adoption, because roughly they're in the same ballpark of trying to attract users from Ingress and provide a better overall UX and increase
Seems
adoption.
legit to me.
Closing the functionality feature gaps, yeah.
Cool.
I think it
Sounds
is
legit.
legit, but one question is and also building on this document that you have after that, right? Like, isn't Ingress Nginx anticipated to get a little bit more tailored attention to all of these features in the annotation? Maybe there's
Yeah, well, let's cover that, but I don't think we need to discuss it this doc at KubeCon anyway. I think this is there'll be a talk that covers some part of this, but I don't think we need a working session to go over this per se. I just really want to focus on how we increase overall adoption and related improve UX for people that are new to Gateway or considering Gateway. But actually, there was one more thing, Shane, if you don't mind bumping back in the agenda. There's one thing that we missed. Added a link to a maintainer summit discussion that should be near and dear to your heart, Shane. Maybe. So,
Subscribed.
yes, sweet. So
Subscribe.
if anyone
one.
cares about this, yeah, some +1s would help. This is really just a voting mechanism for the open sessions at the Maintainer Summit at KubeCon. Is if this is something like you'd like to see discussed more broadly, I would love to get a few more upvotes on this to make sure it makes the cut.
I'll comment on it as well.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, sorry I missed that.
Yeah, no worries.
Going back to Gateway API for Ingress Nginx then?
Yeah, so for anyone who was at the meeting last week at the different time slot, apologies for the repetition here, but this is just want to get some additional feedback on this. What I am hoping for here is to provide a fast and easy path for Ingress Nginx users to adopt Gateway API. As for some of you know, at the last KubeCon in Salt Lake City, Ingress Nginx announced the project was going into maintenance mode and would be archived in 2 years from that point. So that puts it around the end of 2026. And the solution was, let's encourage everyone to move to Gateway API. And this is at risk of being one of those classic, the current solution is deprecated and the replacement isn't ready yet. So I'm really focused on how can we make the replacement ready in time to meet this deadline. I don't think we're ever going to get full support for all Ingress Nginx features. We obviously can't add, we can't lower our bar. We can't add features that are only for Nginx, and wouldn't work for other proxies. Same like anything else, we never add a feature that only works for a single proxy or a single implementation. The same will hold true here. What I am suggesting is that we do what we can to accelerate features that would help people migrate from Ingress Nginx. And the main part of that is really Shane, if you're able to scroll down a bit, I think there are two main bits. One is accelerating.
I need just 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. One is accelerating our release schedule. So we aim for a minimum of 3 releases in 2025 and 2026 each. And that we also provide, one of the things that we've done to kind of rate limit and limit the size of experimental is to ensure that every new thing in experimental kicks something out of experimental. What I'm proposing is that we temporarily increase that to allow for 2 Ingress Nginx specific additions to experimental channel. Yeah, so that's it. Really just trying to find a way where we can increase our velocity and really do everything we can to, support Ingress Nginx users as they're looking to migrate. And yeah, and I should mention here that Ingress Nginx maintainers are refocusing on a project called Ingate, which will be Gateway API focused. So this, can help people migrate to Ingate if they want to, but it can also help people migrate to any other Gateway API implementation. We're not trying to give Ingate any kind of special, treatment as compared to any other gateway implementation. Any comments?
Mattia had his hand up first.
Yeah.
I think that something that could be super useful in relation to this effort would be to kind of tracking the Ingress to Gateway support for Ingress Nginx, because we already have the Ingress Nginx provider, which was the first one, if I remember correctly, that has been implemented. And it would be great, I think, to have kind of feature parity between the implementation of the Gateway API feature, I mean, the migration possibility from the Ingress to Gateway API for Ingress Nginx users to the Ingress to Gateway migration features. So I think it would be great to mention this aspect in this document maybe, and consider this aspect of the problem as well.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think ingress to gateway plays a really crucial role in this. And I want to make sure that as we're adding features, we're also adding them to ingress to gateway. Yeah, big plus one.
And by the
That
way,
actually remind me. Sorry, go ahead.
I was like, by the way, just to jump in, the ingress to gateway tool is designed in a way where you don't necessarily have to translate to move from, one implementation to the same like gateway implementation of it. So theoretically, if we want to support the move from ingress to gateway, we can just contribute work to translate this Nginx features, even regardless of Ngate, and people would still be able to take that, like other implementations would be able to benefit from
Yeah,
that.
that's an interesting point. Like before, so one of the things ingress to gateway can do is it can translate, for example, ingress Nginx plus annotations to any gateway implementation plus their extensions. So for example, if Gateway API doesn't provide 100% feature parity with ingress Nginx, it's still possible that any individual implementation might. And so you could still have maybe several implementations that provided 100% feature parity. I imagine that for 100% feature parity, you probably have to be based on Nginx, but you can get pretty close without that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other
The other
thoughts on
thing
that?
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, the
I was
other
just
thing
saying-
I mentioned in that doc that I should call out is I'm trying to attach the idea of installing CRDs by default here. And the rationale for that is if we're telling people, Ingress is the future, you should migrate, Gateway is the future, but Ingress is included by default and Gateway isn't, that's a confusing message. And I think if we're trying to provide a equivalently simple message UX for Ingress Nginx users, they shouldn't have to worry about how their API gets in our cluster. It should just be there. So I'm hoping we can attach that to this overall effort.
How do you tell me a little bit more about how you see that attached to this effort?
So in my opinion, if we're trying to attract Ingress Nginx users, one of the things we need to do is provide a similarly simple experience. And something like that Ingress Nginx users just don't have to worry about at all is API management, installation, upgrades, whatever. It just happens for them. And I am suggesting that
Okay, so you're suggesting it's a connected issue. It's like something that makes the story even better. Okay, because I was thinking about this one's huge for me right now, and you and Mike Morris and I have had several conversations on the subject. I was thinking about this quite a bit. I think what we really need, and we've already had this conversation, but for anybody else in the room that's interested, we need more documentation for the infrastructure provider, but also tooling to make that experience more consistent. I want users to go from platform to platform and having as consistent an experience with standard gateway API as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And today we're not heading in a terrible direction, but that's entirely because people who are the infrastructure provider, and that is like me, Rob, Mike, to name a few, are communicating and trying to get ahead of that. But there's some things we're behind on, like the CRD management, which Flynn and I talked about at Salt Lake, and now I'm very thankful that you and Nick are going to talk about at London. I think we need to, and maybe I haven't just created an issue for this yet, but I think that needs a story. Like we need to say infrastructure providers need documentation to know what they should be doing. And we probably need to meet them where they are for now, but then try to grow that into the story where it's like, so I'd like to take an action, I guess, to actually create that issue now that I think about it, because I don't know that we've had the conversation over and over, but we haven't documented it. That will support this and many other things, including it's related to the GEP I'm writing for one sec. The GEP I'm writing a GEP for missing. Sorry, help me, Rob. I'm writing a GEP for dead fields. Thank you. For dead fields. It's also the unknown fields or dead fields GEP. There's an issue for that already. That relates to this too, because that's something the infrastructure provider use case needs to have to be able to support multiple gateway API implementations well. Rather, I don't think they'll be the ones to employ it necessarily, but it needs to be there to make that story better. So I'm inspired to like get the ball rolling a little bit more on that. If you don't mind, I'll take that action and like create the issue that kind of describes. Does that sound good? Like describes we need to have the infrastructure provider documentation. It needs to provide CRD life, like all the different things that the infrastructure provider needs to do need to be as consistent as we can make them cross-platform.
That would be awesome. I mean, I think that we absolutely need to, we should aim for the stars, which is just every Kubernetes provider includes gateway by default. But we shouldn't, we should, be okay with the intermediate or embrace the intermediate too, which is we have a standard for any provider that wants to have a standard way of doing it.
Okay, I'll finish that async, but I will at least get that rolling because that matters a lot and relates to that other work that I'm doing. And then yes, makes this story so much easier. And then I'll make a comment on this one with my support. Because that I think that's exactly what Flynn and I were talking about at Salt Lake, and that would be a godsend. So cool. Anything else you want to highlight on that, Doc?
No, that's it. Thanks. I mean, given the lack of comments, hopefully there's nothing controversial in here, but don't hesitate to jump in if there is.
Roger that. Okay. Nobody added anything else to the agenda. So in theory, we've done at least a couple around. So Nick, Rob, and I, for like a couple of years, used to spin off a meeting just for triage. That happened for a while. We've all kind of grown and gotten different positions and more responsibilities, and our time has become very, very hard to come by. So triaging in here seems like it's helpful to make use of the synchronous time that we have. So if anybody wants to like bail, feel free. Don't feel obligated to sit around for triage. But we have a board now that is trying to kind of get wrest control of our large backlog and make sure things don't fall under the rug and that sort of thing. So please do feel free to jump. Otherwise, Rob, do you mind if we do 15 minutes of triage and try to look through some?
Sure, I'll stick around with you. And anyone else, obviously.
Anybody else, yeah. Rob and I at least, but anybody else who wants to be a part of that. I just don't want people to feel like they're obligated to stay because it could get a little dry. So, cool. Then I think, for some reason, I got confused about this before. I'm pretty sure it's this direction. We need to start here and work our way down. So we did this one last time. I'm gonna close some of these other tabs real quick. And I think we left off with Mike. Did we leave off with you and Flynn taking a poke at this? Looks like
Yes, this is something that Flynn and I talked about wanting to address in the upcoming 1.4 cycle.
okay. Then let's call that triage accepted.
Yeah, there's a handful of gamma things. Like between this, the conformance issue that Lior opened is a pretty wide-ranging and kind of important one. There's a few just like things to tighten up gamma and like codify what the spec is that we need to probably start paying more attention to.
Roger that. Okay. So I called that one, I don't think the label like refreshed properly, but I called that one triage accepted and it moved. There we go. conflicting CNI, or sorry, conflicting SNIs between HTTP route and TLS route. I feel like we touched this one recently. Okay, it's staling out. This one's from a long time ago. If I have the same FQDN defined in both the HTTP route as well as the TLS route, what could the conflict resolution be in that case? Current docs on a TLS route match sort of lead me to think the TLS route should be matched before the HTTPS route, but it might be nice to raise a condition for this in the event of one or the other.
I think this really needs someone to drive this who is already supporting both of these. Like for GK, we only support HTTP route, and whenever we do support TLS route, it would be like a separate kind of gateway even. So
Yeah.
it's not something that I have a lot of experience in.
Well, it occurs to me that this would be potentially a blocker for TLS route going GA because it needs to be defined.
Yeah, certainly. If assuming there are implementations that want to implement both,
Implement
on the
both.
same
Like we
gateway.
need to have some kind of upstream, like this is how that works, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, this one is actually triage accepted, and we probably need to freeze it and say it's a blocker for TLS route going, right?
Yeah, if only we had all the right mechanism to.
Well, we can make a approximation.
Right. No, I know, but
We can
you
go.
know,
I can go. I
it's
can
like
go
we need
link it over in the other one.
maybe at some point we need milestones for resource GA, like TLS route GA, for example, and then add to that. But I don't want to
Yeah.
overcomplicate it.
I'll keep it simple for now and just I think GitHub added a feature, or they did, where you can do sub issues. I will make this a sub issue of TLS route, and then it'll be pretty clear that it's required. So I bookmarked that. I'll do that async, so we don't have to watch me do that here. Cool. Then the next one, clarify documentation of request header set and add behavior. From last year in September, the documentation for set currently reads, to edit an existing header, use the set action and specify the value of the header to be modified and the new header value to be set. However, according to the implementation by Trafic, it actually sets it regardless of whether it exists or not. Here's a Go playground that explains. Or is it a Rickroll? No, it's a Go playground. This also goes for the add function functionality, which according to the implementation in Trafic will add values iteratively, etc., etc. Okay. When's the last time? I feel like Nick took a look at it. Nick said this is due to we haven't been clear about it. And Trafic is probably doing it according to the spec. So if we agree with that, then we need to document this. So I guess we need to decide if we agree with that with Nick on the fact that the behavior is what's intended, and then clarify that behavior in documentation.
Yeah.
So this one probably needs us. We can probably call this one. I don't want it to go into the background, but it would probably be reasonable to say triage needs information and have like a follow-up discussion on this one. Unless you want to stop and have that discussion now, I can assign myself to this one, and I can try to make sure that that discussion it doesn't fall into off the boat here.
I think that we should do some investigation on our side, honestly, because it's, for example, to me, it's not clear what's if this is something that is according to the spec or not. So maybe this is something that we should.
Let's call it needs information.
Yeah, I'm happy to take care of this.
Awesome, thank you.
Investigate.
You don't have to. Yeah, just take a look at it. If you don't mind
Yeah.
doing that, that'd be great. And then you don't have to get stuck with it. It just
No.
see if you can move it forward, and then I guess we'll unstale it just for now since we're going to be looking at it. But we'll leave it in triage, so it needs more information.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah,
I'll update the issue when I have some more information.
very much appreciated. Next one, support. What time are we at? Still got time. Support for TLS certificate management and gateway API TLS route. TLS route's coming up a lot lately. This one's gone rotten. It has needs information on it, which probably means I've looked at it at some point. Maybe not.
So I think I get the idea and the motivation behind having TLS certificates in routes. It's very confusing to do it well because you can have many routes per gateway, and as we already found out on gateway, we probably already have too many places you can attach certs because we're resulting in confusing config where the cert you set for a listener may not be the cert that's, a confusing behavior. This feels like it would only exacerbate that. And my bigger thought with TLS route is we've associated TLS route with pass-through. So if TLS route is primarily for pass-through, why would we have are there use cases I'm missing where you terminate and then re-encrypt? And if so, I don't know. It seems like that's not the common case for TLS route. Like if you were going to add a certificate anywhere, it seems like HTTP route would be where you would do it, but I don't know.
Would you do it for something like MQTT or something?
Oh, sweet. Perfect.
Right?
What could go wrong?
Are you responding to me?
No.
Oh.
No, I don't know. I thought you were talking about a different adding.
I was just trying to think about what other it would be for other protocols that use TLS. So MQTT came to mind.
I see. Yeah.
And so like that would potentially be the use case. You're using it. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong about MQTT. I don't actually know MQTT that well, but I think it's TCP, TLS. And so in theory, a TLS route matches it very well. But an HTTP route wouldn't, but I can't remember with MQTT. But in theory, I guess something like that.
There?
Right. That's maybe. So I guess what it really boils down to is that question. And let's see. So they said it doesn't do this. So in theory, they are doing this. They are potentially doing termination. I'll poke this one and basically pose that question.
Okay.
Oh, I guess too, Candace took a look and kind of poked, and they didn't really respond. So they've kind of been pinged on it and not responded. Although there's a related
I think this
issue.
is
Let's take a look
one
at that.
that's fine.
It's maybe just reasonable to say if the original author doesn't come back and it goes stale closed, that actually might be valid.
This is
what is this one,
triage working as intended.
Exactly.
Sorry, Shane. I'm sorry. I sent a link in the Zoom chat here because I've created a PR that has been discussed for a while. It's my bad that is not merged yet because there is some required change. But this PR is related to this bit of information, which is basically which TLS mode is allowed for each route, right? And we kind of
ringing a bell for me now.
We kind of agreed that TLS routes are allowed for both terminate and pass through. Well, we are agreeing on that on this PR.
Yeah, you reminded me. Thank you. I forgot entirely about this PR, but it is kind of where the discussion to whether we would accept that use case lives. But do you remember from this discussion? Was it really like? Do you have this use case, Mattia?
I don't remember. There was a user in the discussion. If you go down,
This one?
yeah, it may be this guy. If you go down, there is a long discussion where a person chimed in, and yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Somewhere in there they chimed in.
Yeah, a lot more here.
Here, somewhere in here.
Yeah, a lot more.
You got it.
There.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, this
We
person.
have that use case. I get. Okay. At least one other of the non-usual suspects thumbs it up. Oh, MQTT, teehee, haha. Okay. So there's Shane predicting the future. I don't remember reading this when I read through this PR before. I do see the use case. I think the fact that there's somebody supporting it is fantastic. Like somebody's coming in here and saying, yes, I need this, and that we're getting at least, some signal. But I like anything with TLS route or L4, I'm immediately kind of anticipating, will we be able to get conformance tests and 3 reports for such a thing? That's kind of the real question. Like, and kind of the question at hand, whether or not we say this is like, we even accept this PR and say this is a use case that we accept. Like, is it realistic that we're going to get 3 implementations? Raise your hand if you have an implementation that's going to do this.
Is that an esoteric setup?
I'm not sure it's esoteric. I'm just not sure we're going to get to the 3 conformant implementations soon. And that might mean that this is a use case that has to wait. And so it might be reasonable to say that it has to wait. We do have to take a look at TLS route and be confident that we can move into this use case later before we GA it. So that's something we need to do. But I don't know. Is anybody on the call like, yep, this is something my users are doing?
This is something that most likely Kong will implement. TLS route with both pass through and terminate.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure about that.
Okay.
Because we have been asked about this aspect. If we are afraid that we cannot reach 3 implementations soon, maybe this could be even an extended feature. Why not?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not trying to cast the doubt on it like we couldn't get there. I'm just wondering, I'm literally sitting here wondering, like, how fast is that going to happen when nothing has happened particularly fast with TLS route? So it's interesting. Would you, just for the, do you think, Mattia, it'd be reasonable to say, let's note your PR on this one and pop the rotten off for now? Well, I don't know. Yeah, no, let me continue the proposal. I propose we at least note the PR on this issue for now. And then I hate to ask this, but Mattia, could we assign you to this one to just kind of keep track of it for a little bit while you're looking at these TLS route related things? And then we should all reconverge on your PR. We should check back in on your PR and give it some priority to have that discussion. Does that sound like a reasonable step forward? Okay. Thank you. I will try. I promise not to.
And I'll address the left comments and I'll try to get the PR merged as soon as possible because it has been open for a long time now.
Okay, sounds good. Alrighty. So still triage needs information, but maybe a little bit more conversation to have there. I think we can, if we want to stick to the 15 minutes, I am fine with sticking to the top of the hour, but I think, triage can get a little bit, like it can make you tired. So like,
yeah, unfortunately I've got to drop. I had something come up, but
okay. All right. Then maybe we'll just call it here and try to get back to triage when we get back from KubeCon, except for me, because I won't be there, but when everybody else is back from KubeCon.
Cool. Thanks a bunch.
Cheers and thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Yes.